We know that there's remarkable healing power in mindfulness. But what is crucial to us fully tapping into it is the attitude we bring to our way of paying attention and being in the present moment. For example, striving for relaxation is only likely to increase our tension and frustration, and might even cause us to question the effectiveness of our practice. So let's take a moment to consider our approach and our mindset. In his book, Catastrophe Living, How to Cope with Stress, Pain and Illness Using Mindfulness Meditation, Jon Kabat-Zinn talks about the attitudinal soil needed to create a strong mindfulness practice. He warns that very little growth will occur if this essential ingredient is undernourished or depleted. Jon Kabat-Zinn therefore believes that it is necessary for us to train our brain to keep a particular set of foundational attitudes in mind. He lists them as non-judging, patience, a beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go. So let's take a closer look at each, starting with non-judging. As we know, cultivating mindfulness involves paying close attention to our moment-by-moment experiences and observing what is going on without judging. In this way, we avoid getting caught up in ideas and opinions, likes and dislikes as best we can. While such an approach allows us to see things as they are, rather than through the lens of our preferences, prejudices, and agendas, it doesn't always come naturally to us. So you may ask, how do we develop a non-judging attitude? The answer is through awareness. When we start paying attention to our moment-by-moment experience, we can be surprised to notice how we judge just about everything we see. Some people, things, and events we label or categorize as either good or bad, depending on how they make us feel, while we judge others to be boring, simply dismissing them as irrelevant to us. The problem is that this constant labeling and judging can trigger automatic reactions. And because it is a mostly unconscious habit, we can quickly lose objectivity. As a result, our endless judging can hijack our mind, support circular thoughts, and make it hard for us to enjoy an ease of living that we might otherwise have. Of course, it's pointless to attempt to prevent our mind from judging. It does so automatically. It's also unhelpful to judge our judging. So as part of our training, we're taught to just notice when judging occurs, as it inevitably will. The awareness that emerges from this very simple practice allows us to step out of reactionary autopilot and respond instead with intention and from a place of values and inner wisdom. The second foundational attitude on our list is patience. Patience comes with the realization that some things simply need to unfold in their own good time. We don't do ourselves any favors when we're stubbornly fighting the natural progression of things we're unable to change. So the second quality is a form of wisdom that we're well advised to cultivate. Of course, it's inevitable that we'll experience feelings of irritability. But through exercising patience, we learn to accept that both pleasant and unpleasant experiences are just a natural part of life, unfolding as it does in the present moment. Next up is a beginner's mind. The concept of a beginner's mind involves perceiving every experience as if we're encountering it for the very first time. All too often we let our prejudices, preconceptions, and the things we supposedly know stop us from seeing the world as it is. So a beginner's mind reminds us that each moment is different from every other, and each therefore comes with unique opportunities. In this way, it helps us be receptive to what new possibilities there are, many of which we will in all likelihood otherwise miss. It also prevents us from getting stuck in the groove of our often rather dubious expertise. As Jon Kabat-Zinn so eloquently puts it, the richness of our experience in the present moment is the richness of life itself. Next, let's talk about trust. Developing an essential trust in ourselves is yet another crucial aspect of our mindfulness training. It's all too easy to get caught up in the reputation or authority of a particular teacher, book, philosophy, app, etc. But doing so contradicts the spirit of mindfulness, which emphasizes being our own person. So rather than continually look externally for guidance, we're better off learning to trust our feelings and experience more, even if it means making a few mistakes. Although we may well need to learn from others, we cannot become a carbon copy of any of our teachers. The very best we can do is to learn to be more fully ourselves. After all, we still have to live our own life, every precious moment of it. And the more we cultivate trust in ourselves, the easier we find it to appreciate and trust the basic goodness of those around us. Next on our list is non-striving. We do almost everything we do with a purpose in mind. We either hope to get somewhere or obtain something. But meditation is different from all other activities. Even though it might involve work and effort on our part, it is essentially non-doing. For this reason, striving can become a real obstacle. For example, if in our practice we have a particular goal in mind, such as to relax, control pain, or be a better person, we automatically introduce a notion of how things should be, which implies things are not quite right at this time. But as we know, mindfulness is about resting in the present moment without judgment. So it involves accepting how things are rather than wanting them to be different. It follows that striving for change will end up diluting our mindfulness practice. This wisdom dovetails neatly with the second last attitude on our list, which is acceptance. Acceptance involves seeing and acknowledging things as they are in the present moment, even when they're unpleasant. So whether it's a headache that we have or that we think that we are overweight, it's unhelpful for us to pretend that things are other than they are. Sooner or later, we need to come to terms with reality. Even if the situation involves something as tricky as a diagnosis of a severe medical condition, or the death of someone close to us. When it comes to challenging situations like these, we may sometimes need to go through painful periods of denial and anger before we can accept the reality of how things are. And of course, such upsetting events might naturally take a period of healing. This is just part and parcel of the recovery process. But even in more everyday situations, we may notice a habit of squandering time and energy trying to force things to be other than they are. The trouble is that this pattern of denial creates tension which can prevent the very changes we want. But in contrast, an attitude of acceptance establishes the preconditions needed for healing. So, for example, while this quality of acceptance might make losing weight less of a concern, accepting how we look at this time can make it easier to do. It's important to understand that accepting doesn't mean that we have to abandon our values and principles, take a passive stance in situations, or like everything that happens to us. It also doesn't mean that we must be satisfied with, resigned to, or tolerant of what's going on. And of course, we should still do what we can to break free from any self-destructive habits we may have, pursue our life goals, and do our bit to combat injustice. The thing is that by cultivating an attitude of acceptance, we're better able to live with ease and respond appropriately to whatever thoughts, feelings, and situations come up. Last on our list is letting go. When we start observing our experience, we notice that we have an impulse to cling to pleasant feelings, thoughts, and situations. We often try to prolong them or experience them over and over again. Then on the other hand, there are feelings, thoughts, and situations we're inclined to prevent or want to get rid of because they're frightening, painful, or otherwise unpleasant. So when we notice that our mind is either grasping at pleasant experiences or pushing unpleasant ones away, we should remember to let go of these impulses, if only to see what happens. Similarly, it's helpful to let go of thoughts of the past and future when they persist. Of course, we need to notice them, but then rather than getting caught up in whatever drama they bring, we should, as best we can, let go and come to rest in mindful awareness itself. As it turns out, we're already practiced at letting go. In fact, we do so every time we fall asleep at night. We can't force sleep, which means that if we can't let go, we can't drop off. So we usually create the right conditions for sleep and then just allow it to happen to us. Now all we need to do is practice the same quality of letting go in waking situations. In this video, we've considered the foundational attitudes of non-judging, patience, a beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go. Of course, this list is not exclusive. Other attitudes that may deepen our practice include non-harming, generosity, gratitude, forbearance, kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity, etc. But in some ways, these are just an extension of the foundational attitudes we've just considered, so not really separate from them. It is now up to us to embody these foundational qualities of mindfulness. Live with attitude, and expect life to be different.